Before attempting to replace the wire harness in your treadmill, be sure to remove the safety key from the console and unplug the power cord from the wall. This video may employ a treadmill or console style that is different than what you have with your machine. This is not a problem. The steps to replace a wire harness are virtually identical across all styles of treadmills and consoles. Do not use power tools during this procedure. Sure, they make the job move along more quickly, but they can just as quickly damage your treadmill's components. If you have any questions while watching this video, see the replacement instructions that shipped with the wire harness. Your first step is to raise the incline on your treadmill to its fullest extent. This will give you access later to where the wire harness comes out through the bottom of the right-hand upright to connect to the controller board. Leave it there for now at full incline. You'll come back to it later. But right now, you need to detach the console from the handrails without removing it entirely. This is done by removing the screws that attach the console to each of the upper extensions on the right and left handrails. At this point, you may want someone to lift and hold the console a few inches from the uprights. Disconnect the wire harness from the console's wire harness. Pull back on the small plastic catch and then pull the connectors apart. Next, disconnect the ground wires between the underside of the console and the console crossbar. The connectors separate easily with a gentle tug. Now carefully set the console aside. Remove the motor hood. This will give you access to where the bottom end of the wire harness connects to the controller board. This procedure is described in the troubleshooting section of your owner's manual, but you can also consult our video that demonstrates this procedure visually. Locate the lower end of the upright's wire harness, where it threads itself through the square plastic grommet in the side of the upright. Remove the ground screw from the upright to free up the ground wire. Next, pry the grommet from the upright and slide it free along the wire harness. To do this, you may need to use a standard screwdriver with a thin tip. Locate the lower end of the upright's wire harness where it connects to the controller board. Disconnect the wire harness from the controller board with a gentle tug. Depending on your model of treadmill, you may need to remove the controller board to get to where the wire harness clips into the belly pan with a square plastic grommet. Because you will need to put the controller board back in, be sure to first take a photo of the controller board to help you remember which wires went where. Remove the ground screw from the frame of the walking deck to free up the ground wire. Pry the grommet from the belly pan and slide it free along the wire harness. Again, to do this, you may need to use a standard screwdriver with a thin tip. Once the grommet is free, push the wire harness out through the hole in the bottom of the belly pan. You are now ready to make the preparations required to remove the damaged wire harness. You must not pull the damaged wire out by itself. You will want to pull the old wire out with the new wire attached to the bottom of it. This way you are pulling the damaged wire out and pulling the replacement wire in all at the same time. Before you tie off the new wire harness to the old one, examine the replacement wire closely. Notice that its two ends are not the same. The connectors are identical, but the distance between the grommet and the connector on the bottom end of the wire harness is shorter than it is on the top end. You will want to tie off the top end of the new wire harness to the bottom end of the old one. If you get it backwards, you will not be able to pull the replacement wire out the top end of the upright, where it must reach to connect to the console wire harness. To tie off the two wires, first take the bottom end of the damaged wire harness and snip off the grommet and the ground wire. Now tie off the top end of the new wire harness to the snipped end of the old wire harness. You will do this by wrapping the top end of the replacement wire around the bottom end of the now clipped wire and then taping them securely together. Make sure you are taping the correct end of the replacement wire. It is the end where the distance between the grommet and the connector is longest. Now push the taped section of the two wires through the square hole and into the upright. Pulling on the top end of the damaged wire at the same time can help with this. Once the taped section of the two wires is inside the upright, take hold of the top end of the damaged wire and gently pull it out through the top of the upright. Keep pulling gently even after you have the taped section of the two wires out the top of the upright. The grommet on the bottom end of the replacement wire will keep you from pulling the replacement wire out too far. Unwrap the tape to remove the old wire and free the connector on the new wire. The old wire can be discarded. Now snap the wire harness grommet into place on the upright. Be sure not to pinch or damage the wire harness. If this happens, the console may become damaged when you turn on the power. Next, attach the ground screw to the upright. Now push the wire harness up through the bottom of the belly pan and snap the other wire harness grommet into the belly pan. This is a view from above. Once you pull the wire harness up through the belly pan, the grommet will stop you from pulling it up too far. Once you have the wire harness attached to the belly pan, attach the wire harness's second ground screw to the treadmill's frame. Now screw the controller board back into place. Using the photo you took of the controller board's wiring as a guide, reattach all of its wires. This includes attaching the wire harness connector securely to the controller board. As you reseat each wire, be sure not to pinch or damage it, and be sure not to bend any pins on the board. Now reattach the motor hood. Now connect the upper end of the wire harness to the console wire harness and tuck them both into the space under the console where they belong. The connectors should slide together easily and snap into place. If they do not, you might have one of them upside down. Flip one connector around and try again. Now getting underneath the back of the console, you must connect the console ground wire to the ground wire on the bottom half of the console crossbar. These two should snap together easily. Now reattach the console to the handrails and uprights, and your treadmill is ready to use.